Welcome to our final installment of Flashback Friday. I'm Matt Carothers as we hone in on the 40th anniversary of the Breeders' Cup, the World Thoroughbred Championships at Santa Anita on November 3rd and 4th. I'm excited about this last episode, though. This guy needs no introduction, right? This is Tiznow, 26, looking great here at WinStar Farm. He's the only horse to win the Breeders' Cup Classic twice. He did it back-to-back years. He had a flair for the dramatic, as they're two of the most exciting races in the history of the Breeders' Cup. For more on the champ, one of the all-time great Breeders' Cup performers, let's go talk to his Hall of Fame rider, Chris McCarron. Chris, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Good to see you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Matt.
Okay, a lot to, as the saying goes, unpack here with Tiznow. Before we get to Tiznow, I'll talk about this guy a little bit. I've said this for a long time. There's never been a better money rider than Chris McCarron. I have it by memory, but I have to look at the list of horses this guy has ridden. My all-time favorite horse, John Henry. Yeah, you know that. Sunday Silence, he was pretty good. Won with him in the Classic. Precisionist, he was a hell of a horse.
Brilliant
Speed, right?
He could run 5/8 and 55 and change, and he won 2 grade ones going a mile and a quarter. He won the swaps in like 158 flat.
He was underrated horses.
Yeah.
Ever. He won the sprint in 85?
Yep.
85.
He could run in dirt, turf, mud, didn't matter.
Ali Sheba. Ali Sheba. I don't have to tell you about Ali Sheba, do I? Alphabet Soup.
Another good one.
That was another classic. I think he beat Day by an inch.
Yes.
In that race, and Cigar was third. Yeah. Passiana, the Breeders' Cup winner. She won the distaff. She was second, I think, the following year. She won, and then she was second the following year.
Yeah, the following year.
I mean, the list is incredible. I mean, Touch Gold, who I think would have won the Preakness if he didn't stumble out of the game.
Oh, yeah, he would have. Yeah, he would have won the Preakness. He went on his head coming out of the gate.
This is about Tiznow, but this is just his resume here first. I mean, Freehouse, Pine Bluff in the Preakness. So you've ridden some unbelievable horses. So let's get to the great Tiznow, two-time Breeders' Cup Classic champ, who's 26, been here at WinStar for many a year. So the first time you rode Tiznow was a Pacific Classic at Del Mar. So you didn't ride him the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 starts of his career. And you lose to Skimming in the Pacific Classic. That's a Bobby Frankel horse who was fast and loved it at Del Mar, right? So it was a very, what did you think of that performance? And I'm all over the place right now. How did you get the mount?
I got the mount on Tiznow for the Pacific Classic because his 2 previous riders, Alex Solis and Victor Espinoza, were tied up on other horses that they were committed to ride in the Pacific Classic.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me. I happened to be in the right place at the right time. I had breezed him a couple times for Jay in the morning. So I don't know. I felt like I was, next person in line, and I was just so fortunate that Jay and the owners went ahead and selected me to ride him. And
were you excited? You knew he was good. He's running the Pacific Classic. No bad horses running in that race. But did you have an inkling at that point in time, how good this modestly bred California bred was?
Well, anytime a 3-year-old runs for the first time against elders, you're always hoping that there's going to be improvement. You always assume that improvement is going to be necessary in order for them to be competitive against their elders. But Tiznow, he won a stake a couple starts prior to that. He ran a really good race in the swaps, I think it was. What was it?
Yep. He lost to Captain Steve, who I think he turned the tables on.
Yeah.
Another great horse for Pegerman Baffert.
Mm-hmm. And but when I rode him in the Pacific Classic, I breezed him a few times at Del Mar before that, and I felt like this horse has just an incredible stride. It was so long and so fluid, no wasted action, and I felt if he ran this race, he would have a chance. But I discovered something that day too, because I was laying second to Skimming about the middle of the turn at the 5/16 pole, and I showed Tiznow my crop, and he ducked in. I said, and he ducked in behind. Now he's catching some dirt in his face, so I wanted to move him back out. And I went to show it to him again, and he kind of stepped to the left again.
Didn't like it.
So I put the stick in my left hand, and I gave him a tap, and he stepped to the right a little bit. So I'm thinking, oh man, he's he's not too happy about being hit. So I just kind of hand rode him for the rest of the way, and he ran a good second. But that was valuable information that I was able to gain on that one trip around the track.
And yeah, again, that's during the period where Bobby Frankel, I think, owned the Pacific Classic. Jay Robbins, do you think he gets? I mean, people talk about Tiznow being great, and they should. You know, yourself, the aboard, but do you think Jay gets lost a little bit with the training job that he did with Tiznow? I mean, he'd won. I think he won with flying. He'd won Grade Ones before. He had great horses, Flying Continental. I think won the Jockey Club Gold Cup. What was the sprinter's name? I have it written down. Yeah, Johnny Eves. I think won the Malibu for him. Talk about Jay Robbins. He was kind of a quiet guy. He seemed that way, you know, in terms from the media standpoint, that he just wanted to do his job and kind of be left alone.
Yeah, Jay's very quiet. He certainly wasn't one that relishes the limelight. You know, anytime he could, you know, not have to participate in an interview, he was pretty happy. He wasn't uncooperative with the media by any stretch, but if he didn't have to do interviews, that would be just fine.
He wasn't raising his hand.
But he's an outstanding horseman, though. I mean, a really good caretaker. When he trained, he liked to learn about his horses, try to figure out exactly what's going to get the best out of them. And his horses were always sound, and
yeah,
he came from a very good horseman, and he deserves a whole lot more credit than he ever received with the job that he did with Tiznow.
So you were 6 for 10, I think, with 6 for 10, 2 seconds and 2/3. 7 of the 10 races were the Beyers were 110 or higher, not 100 or higher, 110 or higher. So we'll quickly go through some of these races. So you lose to skimming, you learned a lot. Then you go to Super Derby, right? Back when it was a Grade 1, and you crush Commendable, your Belmont Stakes winner. You win that race by 6 lengths on the front end. Commendable was a fast racehorse too. You just put him away and won that race by 6. Then you go back to Santa Anita, and this is where you beat Captain Steve in the Goodwood. Captain Steve won the Dubai World Cup. He made nearly $7 million. He was a terrific racehorse. So that was like, you know, maybe the first big win, right, for Tiznow.
Tiznow beat, as you just stated, a lot of really nice horses. The ones that finished behind him are, as
it's a who's who.
Yeah, as Ted Knight would say in Caddyshack, no slouches. You know, no slouches. Yeah, he was just such a talented animal and so competitive. He's always really game. And I'm blessed to have said that I was his pilot for a little while.
So obviously he could take his races everywhere. I mean, you know, Hollywood, Santa Anita, then he goes to Louisiana. Then we go to the first Breeders' Cup Classic win for Tiznow. You know, the Europeans really hadn't. We're gonna throw to this race and then talk about it afterwards. But before that, the Europeans really hadn't come over and really competed too much. I mean, you know, you have Arkong, and there's exceptions, but by and large, not too much in the Classic. Giants Causeway, big time connections, right? Magner, Tabor, terrific. I think he won 6 Group 1s over in Europe. He lost his race going in to the Classic. I think he was second in the QE2 over there. Was he on your radar? Do you just kind of ride your race and just think about what you have to do with a horse like Tiznow, or are you concerned with the others, especially a horse that's kind of an unknown?
I don't really concern myself with the competition. I size them up, you know, but I go into a race thinking that, you know, I'm on the best horse and I'm going to ride him accordingly. I wasn't fearing anybody. Didn't have any apprehension about any of the other horses that were in the race. But I just had to hope that the right Tiznow was going to show up, and he did, of course. But it wasn't until after the fact that we just realized we beat the best horse in Europe, Giants Causeway, and that was just another feather in Tiznow's cap.
Let's go back in time. The only Breeders' Cup Classic race maybe better than this one was 2001. with Tiznow. This is an incredible edition of the Breeders' Cup Classic, Churchill Downs, the year 2000. Tom Durkin with the call.
The 17th running of the Breeders' Cup Classic. And they're off. Lemon Drop Kid has some speed today. Golden Missile toward the inside. Cat Thief, Captain Steve down toward the rail. Here comes Tiznow from the far outside. So they pass us for the first time. It's Cat Thief and Albert the Great now. Albert the Great comes on through to be the early pacemaker. Tiznow second on the outside, pressing the pace. Lemon Drop Kid is there. Giants Causeway is going to get caught 4 wide going into the turn. Vision versus 5th between horses. Cat Thief is 6 toward the inside. Golden Missile going wide into the turn. There was a little traffic trouble there for Guided Tour. Fusaichi Pegasus is 7th at this juncture. He's about 6 lengths for the lead. Gander to his outside, and Fusaichi Pegasus is moving early. Near the back of the pack, Pine Dance 3 wide, a length and a half back to Captain Steve, and another 5 to late running Dust on the Bottle. The opening quarter goes in 23 2/5 seconds, and it's Tiznow and Albert the Great. And the 2 3-year-olds in tandem down the backstretch after a solid opening half of 47 2/5 seconds. Ireland's Giants Causeway on the outside third. And then it's Vision and Burst, who is in between horses. Lemon Drop Kid toward the inside, the Gray Gander. Fusaichi Pegasus is still about 6 lengths from the lead with 4 furlongs remaining. Captain Steve has moved through an opening toward the inside. Golden Missile, Cat Thief, last year's winner, has dropped off the pace now. And then it's Pine Dance as the field rounds the far turn. Albert the Great and Tiznow, they continue to go at it. Giants Causeway is called on for his run. Lemon Drop Kid is 4th toward the inside. Gander is 5th. Vision versus 6th. Fusaichi Pegasus is toiling. The field comes off the turn. Tiznow on the outside. Albert the Great on the rail. The 2 of them continue to go at it. Here comes Giants Causeway for Ireland on the outside. They're coming into the final furlong. Tiznow tough as nails. Giants Causeway on the outside. Giants Causeway and Tiznow battling head to head. A heart-pounding, pulsating stretch drive, and Tiznow prevails. Tiznow has won it by a nose over Giants Causeway, and it was close for third there between Captain Steve and Albert the Great. Fusaichi Pegasus ran an uninspiring race today, finishing in the middle of the pack. And the final time here was 2 minutes and 3/5 of a second.
I mean, what a race! First of all, still, it's one of those races that you're just kind of, I feel like I'm on the edge of my chair, even though I know the result and I've seen it a million times. That has to be one of the greatest duels that you've ever been in with another horse in a big time race.
Matt, it's going to sound corny, but I still get goosebumps. We're sitting here in this beautiful Windstar Farm Stallion Complex. Just got to watch the race again, and I literally get goosebumps every time I see it. Those last few strides, how he was reaching out.
I can see him.
And
yeah, they're prevalent.
Yeah. So it's just so fun, so much fun for me to stroll down memory lane like this, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So, obviously Tiznow very quick. Your old friend Albert the Great, he was he was there doing his thing. You were battling with him. He's not an easy horse to. I don't know if you ever put away Albert the Great, but just to be a little bit better than that obviously takes its toll on most horses. That would be enough. And then Giants Causeway made this big move at you, and then you had that great stretch duel. It looked like obviously it was a close finish, but you were actually pulling away a little bit at the end. It's one of those, if Trevor was calling, they could have gone around again and they weren't going to get past Tiznow, right? I mean, it was kind of like that, the way it looked.
In my mind, that's exactly what it was like.
Good Trevor.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I'll give you about an 8.
Pretty good.
McCarron took a lot of grief over the fact that he dropped his rein at about the 16 pole, and a lot of the Irish connections were, heavily criticizing him for such a grave mistake. Giants Causeway was not going to get by Tiznow if we went another time around the track. Tiznow had not just a beautiful high cruising speed. He had a tremendous amount of stamina. I could never pull him up after a race. Every time I was galloping out with him after a race. I tried to stop him.
Really?
I couldn't stop him. I always had to get picked up by the outrider. Stamina plus.
And we're gonna end the show on the 2001 Classic, but in both instances, he's to the inside of his competitor. I mean, a lot of horses, a lot of great horses even don't like. It's an advantage, right, to be on the outside, generally speaking, in a stretch duel like that. But Tiznow had no problem being inside of horses.
Well, the main reason why he was always on the inside down to the stretch was because he's always
He's
in
in
front and
front,
turning for home.
Yeah.
He was just brilliant.
So, I mean, that's one of the great races of all time. So, he gets a little bit of time off, I guess, and then he comes back in the San Fernando and wins that race easily, and then loses in the Strube. What do you remember about that race? 30 cents on the dollar, losing to the Wooden Phone. Hate to bring it up, but
why did you?
Can you tell with a horse like this, even that maybe they're not feeling? Here, I have all my notes here. Where is it? Right here. Right here, the Strube. Second, you were beating 2 Wooden Phone. Jimmy Z was third in that race.
Yeah. Let's see here. I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah,
so
you still remember it, right? You can't even see the race. You can't see it there on the piece of paper. It doesn't exist anymore, right? That race? Let's forget that race.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It was only 2 lengths. It was, you finished second.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can't win every race, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you've proven your point.
You've
proven your point.
I'm still trying to figure out how we lost that one.
You've proven your point. Didn't show quite as much speed that day, though, right?
Yeah.
Quick.
I don't know. Again, he was such a thinker. He had such a strong will and strong mind. You just don't know exactly what's going through his mind when he runs what we call a clunker like that. Even though it's not, it's great to finish second in a big race like that, but not when you're fully expecting to win, though.
Is that where it helps to have a trainer like Jay Robbins who's pretty even keeled?
Yeah.
He doesn't get upset. He's just like, okay, something went wrong. Let's just figure out what it was and let's just improve.
Yeah. Jay was great to ride for.
So it seemed like Tiznow always knew who he lost to, because he lost to Captain Steve, and he came back and beat you, and he beat him again. And so then you go to the big cap, and there's Wooden Phone, who just beat him, and you crush him by 5 lengths. So you have this momentum now. Then you go to New York, and I'd forgotten.
There's a long layoff between.
That's right.
The handicap.
Yeah, right. 6 months.
Yeah.
What was the layoff for?
I breezed him. His next race was going to be the Pimlico Special after he won the Santa Anita Handicap, and I breezed him one day, and when he was cooling out, it looked like he was tying up, but in fact he strained some muscles up in his hip, and at least that, if I remember correctly, that's what the diagnosis was, and it just took quite a while for him to get right again. And
so you felt this during training?
No, I didn't feel it during the work.
Oh, okay.
We saw it.
You did. Okay.
When he was cooling out.
He
was really short stepping behind.
Okay.
And we thought he was tying up, but that wasn't the case. So Jay gave him more than enough time to get ready. And when he ran in the Goodwood at Belmont, when he ran in the Woodward at Belmont, he just didn't fire. He was getting his usual trip, just stalking. And when I turned for home and asked him to run, he gave me a little spurt, but he didn't finish with the gusto that he normally does. And then he replicated that effort in the Goodwood in his next start. So a lot of people were saying, well, he's not as good as he was last year. He's already reached his peak. But, breezing him in the mornings, I knew different. I knew he was still there.
But going back, I know all these races pretty well, but the dates sometimes escape me. And I'd forgotten that the Woodward was 3 days before 9/11, September 8th. So you're on a plane, I'm guessing September 9th?
No,
Flying back, or?
I was in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Okay, so you went from New York
I went to visit my wife's family in Springfield, Mass. We took in a Broadway show that Sunday evening, the night before 9/11. And then we drove up to Massachusetts after that. I was on the golf course when Judy called me. Says somebody just flew a plane into the World Trade Center. You gotta come home. I said, well, come home. What am I gonna do? You know, I'm only on the 14th hole. I want to finish this round. And then 20 minutes later or something like that, she called again and said somebody flew into the second tower. And so her dad and I picked up our golf balls, put the equipment in the car, and then drove home. And then suffered emotionally like everyone else in the country. So many people around the world were just so devastated that something like that could actually happen on American soil.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously awful for everyone. I mean, I was in California, and still, your jaw is just like this all day watching TV with tears streaming down your face, and it must have been even more bizarre for you having just been at a Broadway play in Manhattan the night before. I mean, I can't imagine that. So you drive back from Boston all the way to California at this point in time?
No, we flew home.
You flew home.
Yeah.
Okay, you flew home, and then you have the Goodwood, and another race that we sort of touched upon, where Freedom Crest was a giant price too, wasn't he? 39-1 or something. He was an $80 winner for Baltus, and that was one of the, what did I say, 10 races. 7 of the 10 your buyers were above 110. That was a 106. Even in defeating the Woodward, the figure was a lot higher. And then the Skeptics came out in the weeks before the Breeders' Cup Classic. Were you at that point in time? Were you thinking, oh, maybe he's not as good as he once was, or did you believe what they were saying, or did you know, I know this horse, he's going to be fine?
I couldn't help but buy into some of that, critique. I couldn't without, unequivocally say, no, he's perfectly fine. Everything's going to be great because of his antics. When I was going to breeze him that morning, a week before the Classic, it took me 40 minutes to get him to go. He just didn't want to go. And when he finally breezed, he flew around there. He worked on like 36-2 or something like that. Not from wire to wire. It was from the half-mile pole back around to the half-mile pole. Horses don't do that.
No.
When horses hit the finish line, they start gearing down a little bit because they know they know where the finish line is. Not Tiznow. He kept on rolling, and man, he breezed great. So.
Do you want to go see your old friend, your old crony? You want to go see the champ?
Do I have to? Yeah, of course I want to go see him.
Right. Chris and I are going to go see Tiznow, visit with him, and then talk about the Classic in 2001. So, Chris, what is it like being back together with Tiznow? I'm sure you've been back here dozens of times, but it never gets old, does it?
No, it doesn't get old. He's awesome. He's kind of unusual for a stallion too, because he's not very mean at all. He's got a very good temperament. If you give him the opportunity, he will bite you. But I remember when he was in training, Jay Robbins used to put his fist in his front teeth, and Tiznow would knead on it. He would go like that. He wouldn't bite down. He'd just go like that. And I couldn't believe that Jay would take those chances, but he did.
I mean, he's 26 now. He looks super. It's fair to say that one of the traits that all great horses have is intelligence, right? So I'm guessing Tiznow.
He's
very,
way
very
up
bright.
there. Yeah, he's very bright. He's very smart, and which is evidenced by a lot of the things that he can get away with. He's got a very strong mind, strong will.
So let's talk about the last start of his career. October 27th, the Breeders' Cup was a little bit earlier back then at Belmont Park. when did you go back to New York, and what was that like going back to New York 46 days after 9/11?
It was very emotional. I went back. I flew to New York on the Thursday, 2 days before the Breeders' Cup.
Is it harder to concentrate? I mean, you're doing a job. It's the biggest event of the year for you, but yet everything's in turmoil. I mean, the whole world is basically, in our world in the States. Was it difficult to focus?
One of the first alarming things that we noticed when you pull up to the gate, the entrance to the track, there were, National Guard and servicemen everywhere. And then before the races began, they asked all the jockeys to walk out onto the track, holding an American flag. And some of us had an FDNY hat, others had an NYPD hat on. And as we walked out onto the track and turned left, I looked up on top of the building, and there was a sniper about every 50 yards, the whole length of Belmont Park's grandstand.
So obviously the emotion at Belmont Park that day was like this.
Yeah.
And they're always great fans in New York anyways, and it's obviously a huge race, the Breeders' Cup Classic at Belmont Park. You could feel it in terms of all the security that was there. Could you feel it in terms of the crowd during the race, or are you just locked in on what you're doing?
I was just locked in what I was doing. I couldn't let any of the emotional feelings that one might get at an extreme event like that. But by that I mean just in the aftermath of that horrific terrorist act. I really had to just blank all that stuff out of my mind. I just had to focus on the strategy I was going to employ, what I was going to do with him, when I was going to ask him. This guy, you didn't tell him what to do. You just simply asked, and most of the time he did very well. So, but it wasn't, with the exception of the heightened security and all the National Guardsmen and Army servicemen, closely present like that. To me, it was just another really big day of racing. It's the Super Bowl of racing that we have in the year. And that always is going to really spike the adrenaline anyway.
You win in 2000 at a price, and because you'd lost 2 in a row, you're going to be a price again. What did you know? So you had the Godolphin charge, and everyone thought Fantastic Light, I think, was going to go in the race. And I think Fantastic Light and Saki, you had your epic battle with, they both worked like the Tuesday before. Mm-hmm. And everyone was saying that Fantastic Light worked much better on dirt. He worked faster. He went 59 and change, and Saki went 101. So everyone thought Saki, who won the ARC 20 days prior, was going to go Breeders' Cup Turf, and Fantastic Light was the horse going in the dirt. And then Simon Crisford, racing manager for Godolphin, said, no, we're going to go Saki in the dirt. What did you know about Saki? Because it was kind of an audible late for Godolphin.
Well, I know about him was that he was the best horse in Europe. He was coming off a streak of wins and beating the best horses on the European continent. My hope was that he wasn't going to improve any on the dirt, having been his first start on the dirt. I was just hoping that he was purely a turf horse, but he showed that he handled the dirt very well. And at one point down through the stretch, I thought I was going to finish second. Saki came to my outside, and he got a good half length in front of us, right around the 8th pole. And I wasn't sure, whether I should go ahead and tap Tiznow with my stick or not, because I wasn't sure what kind of result I was going to get. So I thought, well, I don't think I'll be worse than second. So
you touched him a little left-handed. I don't think you ever used the right hand. What do you think it was? Is it just the heart of a champion? What do you think took over?
It was the heart of a champion for sure. He knows where the finish line is, and he also knows what it feels like to be in a fight. And thirdly, he knows what it feels like to win a fight. He won a lot of them.
And so do you. You won a lot of big races and photos in your career.
He was just very generous with his talent. he was very quirky about a lot of different things. They couldn't walk him into a stall. They had to turn around, back him in. But he was never any problem at the starting gate, which really surprised me because with the confinement, that space being so tight, I thought for sure if there was some place on the track where he'd be really uncomfortable, would be in the starting gate. And he never gave us any problem at all.
We're going to throw the race here in a second, but obviously Tom Durkin saying Tiznow wins it for America. It's iconic. I mean, we've all heard it a million times. You still get goosebumps when you hear. Did you hear him utter those words when he said them live?
No, I didn't hear him live. I was screaming. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. Yeah!
Hall of Famer.
There he is.
Chris McCarron, Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer Tiznow.
Tiznow, that's right. Now it's time to show a race that transcended sport. Just 46 days after 9/11, they ran the 2001 Breeders' Cup Classic at Belmont Park. Tiznow looking to go back-to-back in the Classic. It's one of the greatest races of all time. Obviously one of the greatest Breeders' Cup races of all time. It's one of the greatest race calls of all time. Tom Durkin on the mic, the 2001 Breeders' Cup Classic.
The Classic, and they're off to the cheers of the crowd, and guided tour breaks alertly with Orientate. Albert the Great is gun to the lead. That's Albert the Great. Ore Chavez puts him in front, but Pat Day and Orientate are going to take the fight to him, and those two hook up in a speed duel in the first furlong here. Tiznow not far behind. He's running third in the early going. Guided tour drops back to run along in fourth. Galileo only 5 lengths from the lead. He's fifth. The arc winner Saki is sixth on the outside, and the favorite Aptitude is now running in seventh. Macho Uno bulls his way through from eighth now. Black Middlebush is ninth. Include is down toward the inside, and he's now 10th. Freedom Crest Gander, who's well in hand, and at the back of the pack is Long Shot Up Late Stancer. The quarter went in 23 1/5 seconds, a grueling pace here, and into the wind half of 47 seconds flat. Albert the Great grinding it out on a short lead now. Orientate couldn't stay with them. There goes Guided Tour, who split horses decisively with 5 furlongs to go, and on the outside, the daunting presence of a horse of the year, Tiznow, and he's right there just off the pace fourth. Saki and Galileo right there and behind the lead. Macho Uno's in the thick of it as Aptitude begins to roll here with 3.5 furlongs to go in the Classic, and it is Albert the Great blazing the way. Tiznow looms in second. Saki is there on the outside. Guided Tour fights on. Galileo's under a heavy drive. He's still 6 lengths behind. Include will put his run through on the rail. Aptitude is taken wide by Gander, and the field turns for home. Here comes the arc winner, Saki, and he storms to the lead. Saki in their lead, and Tiznow is battling on, the American Horse of the Year, and the arc winner are heads apart with a furlong to go in the Classic. On the outside, Saki. Tiznow fights on. Here's the wire, desperately close. Tiznow wins it for America, beating Saki right on the wire. Finishing third was Albert the Great. Macho Uno was fourth. Oh, did they deliver a thriller here at Belmont Park this afternoon? An heroic stretch drive that will go on in Breeders' Cup legend.